VCY America presents Crosstalk, a nationwide call-in program discussing issues that have an effect on our families, our communities, our churches, our nation, and our world. Crosstalk, an opportunity for you to voice your concerns for biblical principles. And now live by satellite and around the world on the internet at vcyamerica.org. Here is today's Crosstalk.
And we thank you for joining us on Crosstalk here on VCY America. And ladies and gentlemen, while I brought this matter up on our most recent News Roundup program, today we're going to do more of a deep dive into it. And to set up our conversation today, I just want us to recall our country coming to a literal standstill September 11th, 2001, as Islamic hijackers commandeered commercial aircraft and flew them into the Twin Towers, into the Pentagon, and due to the action of courageous passengers, into the ground in Shanksville, Pennsylvania. 2,977 were killed by those who did this despicable act. And friends, after this happened, churches were filled to capacity. Special prayer meetings were called. Live televised national addresses were given. Concerts were taking place. The country was in mourning. Lives were forever changed. And yet, friends, when Planned Parenthood released their annual report for 2023-2024, we learned that during that fiscal year, 402,230 little baby boys and little baby girls were slaughtered in the womb through Planned Parenthood facilities and through their actions. That's over 1,100 little boys and little girls every single day coming to their death. The churches were not filled when this report came out. Special prayer meetings were not called. There was no national live broadcast from coast to coast with celebrities denouncing this act. There was no congressional delegation going out on the Capitol steps to sing God Bless America. Life simply went on as if nothing had happened. Just let that sink into your thinking. This was an all-time high for Planned Parenthood. And if that isn't enough, if that's not enough horrible information to grasp, ladies and gentlemen, you paid for it. Planned Parenthood took in $792.2 million in taxpayer funds through reimbursements and grants. When will the people across this nation say, no longer? When will the people say, we must stop the killing? Congress is right now debating the budget, and the question is, will they continue to use your money to fund the nation's number one killer of babies in the womb, Planned Parenthood? Joining us today, we welcome Kelsey Pritchard, Political Affairs Communications Director for Susan B. Anthony Pro-Life America. Kelsey, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Jim.
Kelsey, the numbers and the reports I just shared are staggering. They're jaw-dropping. They make my stomach churn. Just weeks ago, I held a new little granddaughter in my arms. How can any civilized society allow this?
It's truly awful. And you look at that number and, it's easy to not think about every single individual, but, every number is a person that we will never know, is a friend, would have been a friend. How many people are we missing in our lives because they died by abortion? Mm-hmm. How many coworkers and classmates, family members are we missing who never got to be a part of our world? And a large number of them lost their lives because of Planned Parenthood. And we've been propping them up with $2 million a day of our taxpayer money so that they can keep doing this.
And that's outrageous. I mean, funding about $2 million every single day, and that's evidenced by their recent annual report. I think that's $100 million more than a year ago?
Yeah, that's right. More money and more abortions, and they do less of the non-abortion services, the few services that they do provide that aren't abortions. They're doing less of that. Their cancer screenings, breast exams, other things like pap smears, all of those things are down more than 70%, yet abortions have skyrocketed, and now they're offering gender transitions, and now they're getting into more and more political spending to increase woke politics in this country.
And and we're going to break all of this down here today. And Kelsey, you brought this up about their other services, and Planned Parenthood is really convinced many people that abortion is just, well, it's just such a small percentage of what we really do. And they've got women convinced that their services are so critical. Comment on that, if you would.
97% of the time, a pregnant woman walks into Planned Parenthood, she gets an abortion. Their business is abortion. They exist to sell abortions. That is how they make money. That is why they exist throughout the country. It's abortion. It's to take the life of the unborn child and to spread misery amongst women across this country. And so that's what they do. That's what they're here for. So they have these, crafty talking points, and they've got beautiful images on Instagram, and they are marketing PR pros. But when you get down to what they exist to do and what they're doing, they're killing people. They're killing the most vulnerable among us.
And so when a client comes into them, when a woman comes into them and wants to have an abortion, if they do a blood test, if they do this, they count each one of those things as individual services to try and somehow counter the number of abortions that they do compared to those other services.
That's right. They try to botch the numbers. And so if you look at the report and just read it yourself, it's not clear that their services have gone down that are non-abortion services. It's also not clear how often abortion is the thing a pregnant woman receives versus other things. But our Charlotte Lozier Institute broke down the numbers. They looked at the numbers from year to year going back from 2010 to now. And we've got a fact sheet on their website that breaks it down. But yeah, the data is all from them, and it's true. This is what they offer pregnant women, and they do 97% of the time.
But at the same time, Planned Parenthood wants women to believe that we're your friend. But are not women and girls actually harmed by Planned Parenthood?
Yeah, even the New York Times and NPR acknowledge this now. The New York Times had this grisly report that came out in February of this year talking about atrocious conditions and terrible experiences that women have had. And one of the experiences they named was that they placed an IUD in a woman who was pregnant, and they caused the child to be stillborn. They couldn't even manage to do a basic pregnancy test in that situation. Then it told another story of this Planned Parenthood in Nebraska where sewage had been leaking 4 days. They didn't address it, and patients were coming in and throwing up because the smell was so bad. And then, of course, those are kind of some of the horror stories that they have acknowledged, but then there are women who themselves have died because of abortions at Planned Parenthood. There was an 18-year-old girl in Colorado in February who died when Planned Parenthood did a 22-week abortion, and they admitted to her grandparents that they waited too long to call an ambulance. And then they told the ambulance to leave off the lights and the sirens so as not to draw attention to the pro-life people outside. And so this whole the garbage talking point of how they exist to help women, it's not true. It's not true at all. And women have died because of them.
It seems to me that there's a whole lot of healthy women that go into a Planned Parenthood and come out in an ambulance. Yeah,
it's awful. And they don't come out in an ambulance. I mean, look at the studies about depression and anxiety and PTSD and the things that women experience if they're lucky to not experience the actual health impacts, like having to go to the ER after taking abortion drugs at home by themselves because they've been bleeding for 30 days or more, they're hemorrhaging, or because they had an ectopic pregnancy, and you're not supposed to take that drug if you have an ectopic pregnancy, but you can do it now. You can get it in the mail and then do it yourself. So there are so many terrible things that women are experiencing because of abortion, and there's even a new study that came out that shows women who've had abortions have a higher rate of contemplating suicide. So it is just tragic. Not only that it takes the life of the unborn child, but that it is ruining lives of women as well.
It really is. And I just received an email the other day from Live Action, Lila Rose's organization, and they had testimonies of different women. And I'm just going to share one of them. This is one named Julianne, and she is a woman from Tennessee named Julianne, wrote that she visited Planned Parenthood at age 19 for an abortion out of desperation after she became pregnant by a boyfriend 14 years her senior, who pressured her into having an abortion. Both Julianne and her boyfriend were using drugs, alcohol, and tobacco, and Julianne didn't think she wanted to raise a child. Planned Parenthood seemed to offer her a quick and easy solution to her problem. So off to Planned Parenthood I went to quickly, quietly, and easily take care of what I rationalized was only a clump of cells at this point anyway, and on taxpayers' dollars no less. They made it all quite convenient and at no personal cost or sacrifice to me. I applied for state aid to pay for the procedure and even received the bonus of food stamps that I didn't need in order to provide my body with nutrition for a child I was going to kill in a week. Talk about government bureaucracy at its finest. Julianne claimed the Planned Parenthood nurse wouldn't allow her to see the ultrasound. She said, I do not know if providing an ultrasound was common practice back then, but I do know mine was necessary in order to establish how far along I was. When I laid there and watched this happening, the nurse would not allow me to look at the screen. She did not want me to see a moving baby inside me with a head and hands and legs and feet and a heartbeat. Somehow I maneuvered and managed a glimpse despite her objections. Julianne alleged that staff didn't provide her with any counseling about all her options, including adoption, nor did they warn her about mental health risk of abortion, provide her with pregnancy resources, or give her a waiting period before the abortion. She claims that 10 minutes after talking with Planned Parenthood staff, she was lying on the procedure table, but she had changed her mind about wanting an abortion at that point. Less than 10 minutes later, I was lying on the operating table, and I had completely changed my mind. All it had taken was an ultrasound to make me realize there was a baby inside me and I couldn't go through with it. I told everyone present to stop the procedure. They did not. The next moment, I felt a gas mask going over my face. I remember struggling as I understood what was happening to me. I awoke a few minutes later, and my first thought was, I hope they didn't kill my baby. I cried out and asked if they had done the abortion, and of course, they had. My grief was overwhelming. So was my shock, anger, and betrayal. She wrote, since then, when I hear or read about the praises of Planned Parenthood and how they provide health care to women, I am sickened. They offer no health for me or my baby. They only sought to steal life and health. Where was their care for me? Where was their care for my child? Where was their care for my desire to stop the procedure? That is, Kelsey, just one testimony of many with their horrors inside that abortion chamber.
That is so tragic. And the worst part about that is that I've heard very similar stories from multiple women with almost the same themes there, where we're talking about they didn't give them informed consent, where they changed their mind during the procedure or before the procedure, and Planned Parenthood forced the abortion on them, and where sometimes they walk in and no one asks them if they want the abortion, but they're taken in by a boyfriend or an abuser, coercer, someone who has decided for them that they're going to have an abortion, and it's clear that the woman is in distress and it's against her will and what she wants. And so, I think it is fitting that many of them have abandoned the label pro-choice. They are not pro-choice anymore. They are pro-abortion.
How much referral for adoption is done by Planned Parenthood?
It's very little. So 97% of the time, as I mentioned, a pregnant woman walks in, she gets an abortion, and in that other 3% is included adoption services or referring for those services or prenatal care or miscarriage care. And so that is a very small chunk of what they do. And I've also heard from women who previously worked at Planned Parenthood who were chastised and got in trouble when they tried to refer a woman to a pregnancy center who could help with adoption or prenatal services.
Friends, it's so tragic what is taking place, and your member of Congress is on the brink of casting votes on this very issue. We're going to take a break. We're going to come back and talk about what funding has been going on. Planned Parenthood's been boasting of the funding they get from your wallet. But we're also going to provide you phone contact numbers for your members of Congress. We'll be back in a minute here on Crosstalk.
Back to Genesis with Dr. John Morris, scientist and creation researcher with the Institute for Creation Research. Dr. Morris, what are comets made of?
Chris, comets are sometimes referred to as dirty snowballs. They're mainly ice, but with a lot of solid particles mixed in. As a comet goes around the sun, the solar heat and solar wind vaporize part of the comet, and we see the tail as those particles are stripped away. Now we find that sometimes not only is the tail stripped away, but sometimes the head is lopped off, speeding up the comet's disintegration. Obviously, comets can't last too long, thus they are a strong sign of a recently created universe. The Bible refers to these comets as wandering stars that don't follow the standard motion of the stars or the planets. They were created on day 4 of creation week, back in Genesis.
To equip yourself with facts that support your faith, visit us on the web at www.icr.org. That's www.icr.org.
You're listening to Crosstalk on the VCY American Network. Our topic today, the critical need to be a voice for the voiceless. Kelsey Pritchard is with us, Political Affairs Communications Director for SBA Pro-Life America, and talking about Planned Parenthood. They just released their annual report here in recent days. We're talking about what they are boasting of in their annual report. And also, friends, we're going to circle back to this matter of your Congress member that is going to be casting a vote in the very, very near future on whether or not to take your tax dollars from your wallet or your purse and put them in the hands of Planned Parenthood. And Kelsey, I find it interesting that taxpayers gave over $792 million to Planned Parenthood last year. And you mentioned that's about $2 million every single day. That's just astounding, and it's outrageous at the same time.
Yeah, exactly. Taxpayers have been forced for years to prop up abortion businesses like Planned Parenthood, and it's a widely unpopular thing to make the American people publicly fund abortion. Around 60% of Americans oppose doing that, and that includes 33% of Democrats, 41% of pro-choice voters, and 58% of independents. And so it's really the time to stop the funding of big abortion, and Republicans should be energized to get this done.
I find, with the $792 million, yet at the same time, the political action arm of Planned Parenthood, they're spending lots of money, vast sums of money, to defeat candidates who stand for life.
That's right. They spent a record-breaking almost $70 million last year during the 2024 election cycle alone. They worked very hard to try to elect Kamala Harris and Democrats who endorse abortion at any point in pregnancy. And this is really why the pro-life Democrats are almost extinct at this point throughout the country. And Democrats have moved so far on this issue that they not only believe in first trimester abortions, but second trimester, third trimester. They can't name a limit that they support anymore. And so that's why Planned Parenthood supports them. And then they expect Democrats to continue to kick the Medicaid money to them as well as other funding.
How is it that we're seeing in the aftermath of the Dobbs decision that we're seeing a record number of abortions for Planned Parenthood when at least 12 states have banned elective abortions, another 6 have passed restrictions at or before 12 weeks of pregnancy? Why are we seeing such numbers?
Yeah, a lot of that has to do with these shield laws that blue states have passed, and also the Biden-Harris administration that enacted this mail order rule on abortion drugs. So an abortionist in New York can send drugs to any woman in any state, no matter what their state law is, because they supposedly have this shield law in their state protecting them from legal action or from losing their license or any kind of harm. And so they've been sending more pills in the mail, and women have been doing their abortions at home. No doctor visit required, no confirmation that a woman doesn't have an ectopic pregnancy, which causes very severe complications if you take the drugs and you have an ectopic pregnancy. No confirmation that the woman wants the abortion herself or that she is being coerced. No confirmation that the patient is actually the woman who would take the drugs. Sometimes these pills get in the hands of abusers, of traffickers, and they will not only coerce women, but sometimes they will poison women in their lives. And so that has been a big problem and part of the reason why we've seen more abortions and not fewer.
Yeah, indeed. I mean, the chemical abortions, so many women are being harmed by these abortion pills, and we've seen tragic loss of life as a result as well, haven't we?
That's right. There was a young woman in the state of Nevada who got some abortion drugs, and this was actually through Planned Parenthood, and she developed a serious infection. She got sepsis and she died. And she had I believe it was a 1-year-old son who she left behind. And she's not the only one whose life has been taken by these terrible, awful abortion drugs.
I understand there are pro-abortion groups that are recommending using the abortion pill for third trimester abortions.
That is, the FDA, even the FDA in their egregious practice of allowing these drugs without having them undergo the same scrutiny and testing that other drugs have to go through to be approved in this country. Even they say you're not supposed to have these pills in the second trimester or third trimester.
Right.
But few things amaze me these days with how far the abortion lobby has taken things.
So let's also mention the abortion reversal pill, because pro-abortion groups don't want this mentioned. And I understand thousands of unborn children have been spared when the abortion pill reversal is implemented.
Yeah, so the abortion pill reversal is just progesterone. Progesterone is something that has been given to women for years who themselves have experienced miscarriages in the past. And so it's given to them to try to help so they do not miscarry when they're pregnant, and it's been successful in a lot of cases. And so it's a very safe drug to give women, and it works in the majority of cases. It works to reverse the abortion drug pill that tries to starve and kill the child. And the sooner you take it after you've taken the abortion drug mifepristone, the better and the higher chance you have to save that baby.
One more question here before we talk about Congress, and you mentioned this in some of your opening statements, and it's this Planned Parenthood's, really it's their own admission that they are the second largest provider of hormone therapy in the nation. What's this all about here, Kelsey? Planned Parenthood in the gender services business?
That's right. They have started offering gender transitions, and there was a video, a report that came out from Live Action recently that shows they're not just offering these gender transitions to adults, but to minors as well. And that is a vastly unpopular thing. And so very glad that Live Action brought attention to this. We've got, a handful of wishy-washy Republicans in Washington, D.C. that maybe aren't too keen on defunding Planned Parenthood. So if they can't find themselves to care about the unborn child who's losing their life or the women who are being harmed, I hope they could at least care about the minors that they have been exploiting with these gender transitions and the way that they have thwarted parents as well.
Friends, we're talking with Kelsey Pritchard, Political Affairs Communications Director for SBA Pro-Life America. And Kelsey, as we speak, Congress is in the heart of their budget battle right now, working through this one, what they call a big, beautiful bill. But I understand that this is very much a key aspect of this. So let's bring Congress into the picture now. What does this this budget bill do that is working through committee after committee after committee right now as it relates to Planned Parenthood?
So the bill has a provision in it that strips Medicaid funding from entities that do abortion. So this would impact Planned Parenthood. It would also impact any other abortion business in this country that gets Medicaid dollars. And so the reasoning why this is in a budget bill, because obviously it's a budgetary matter with Medicaid funding, but it's also an important thing because the budget bill does not require 60 votes in the Senate. It requires a majority. So that makes this a doable fight. And something that we got very close to achieving in 2017, we had a similar provision in the repeal and replace Obamacare package, which then failed by one vote from John McCain, who voted against it for reasons unrelated to abortion, as I'm sure you and your viewers recall. And so we've gotten so close to this in the past. We're seeing a lot of engagement, enthusiasm from Republicans on the Hill to finally get this done. And so that's why we're hopeful this will finally be the year.
How imminent is such a vote?
So the House Rules Committee is taking this up 1 a.m. on Wednesday morning, and then it will go to a full House vote shortly after. That could be as soon as tomorrow. And from there, it would then go to the Senate. And so we've got kind of a marathon ahead of us It could still be, a few months before this budget bill is across the finish line, because once the Senate passes it, then it's going to have to go to a conference committee where they reconcile any differences between the two bills. So a lot could happen between now and then, but it's very important that we continue to communicate to our members of Congress that this is a priority for the American people and they need to get it done.
Friends, we're talking, I hope you caught what Kelsey said. The House Rules Committee is coming together at 1 a.m. That's Eastern time this morning. That's in Central time. That's midnight tonight. We're talking in not too many hours from now, less than 10 hours from now, they're going to be gathering. And what will happen in that Rules Committee?
So we don't expect a lot of fireworks on our issue, thankfully. I think it will be kind of ushered through where they determine the rules, and then we saw a report today that indicated that they are interested in taking the bill up for a full floor vote tomorrow. And so it could go very quickly to the full House. Of course, we never know what could happen. It could be pushed. The Speaker has said he might cancel the recess that is scheduled for Memorial Day if they can't get it done by then. And so we do hope everyone can come together and get this passed by the end of this week.
So, friends, it could be by this time tomorrow that the House has already cast their vote. We don't know. We don't have a crystal ball here to forecast that by any means, but we do know that it's on a trajectory once it passes the Rules Committee for it to go to a full House vote. And you can reach out to your member of Congress. And really, Kelsey, that's the best thing people can do at this time is to make a point of contact to their member of the House and a follow-up call to their 2 U.S. senators, correct?
Yes, absolutely. Please do that, because we know that Planned Parenthood is in full force. They've got all sorts of ads and lobbying efforts, and they're flooding some of these offices with calls, negative, very harsh, mean calls some of the time. And so the Republicans overall have been really enthusiastic and encouraging in our interactions we've had with them, in our lobbying efforts. And so I think it would be appropriate to have a different tone than the other side and communicating to them and say that we're praying for them. And we really are hopeful they will get this done. This is a priority for us. It's a priority for the American people, and we appreciate their efforts to finally defund Planned Parenthood. And
friends, I'm going to provide you a phone number as well as a web address where you can get specific numbers, but to the main switchboard to the House, and there's a main switchboard for the Senate, 202-225-3121. That's the main House switchboard. And either of these numbers you can get through to the House or Senate, but 202-225-3121 and 202-224-3121. 202-224-3121. Now, the most critical vote is coming up very, very soon for your member of the House of Representatives. You have one congressman, you have two senators. A call to your congressman and 2 calls to your Senate offices will allow you to reach those who represent you. Now, the switchboard is sometimes busy and they're flooded with phone calls. If you want the direct number to their offices, you go to house.gov, senate.gov, those 2 websites, and you can see who your legislator is. And click on that. You'll find direct numbers, not only to their D.C. number, but also their home district numbers as well. And friends, you may want to consider contacting them both in D.C. as well as their local district number, because when their local district phone is ringing off the hook, that also tells them, hey, people back home are interested in this issue. And Kelsey, making those calls is just so critical for members of Congress to hear from them, correct?
It's so important.
Friends, a quick break. We'll be back with more here in just a moment. And if you have a question you'd like to ask or a brief comment, we're opening our phone lines here today where you can speak and ask Kelsey your questions on this issue. Let's hear what you have to say, friends. Our number is 800-733-9829. 800-733-9829. Back in a minute.
There is a movement to propel humanity toward an advanced level of existence. Those seeking to change the culture of society are on a rapid trajectory, aggressively touting the extremely powerful capabilities of AI.
Artificial intelligence and transhumanism.
The ultimate goal of the elite is to obtain immortality and become gods. In the book, Artificial Intelligence, Transhumanism, and the De-Evolution of Democracy, Pastor and Bible prophecy speaker Dr. Richard Schmitz unfolds his extensive research and documents revealing information, unveiling the agenda of those pursuing this technology for evil. You'll also see how these technological advancements fit hand in glove with biblical prophecy and one known as Antichrist. The book, Artificial Intelligence, available for a donation of $18. Call 1-800-729-9829.
You're listening to Crosstalk on VCY America. Friends, are you staggered by this? Does it move you in any regard to know that in the last fiscal year for Planned Parenthood, 402,230 little baby boys and girls gave up their lives, slaughtered in the womb through actions by Planned Parenthood? That's the number of abortions that they're reporting. Over 1,100 little boys and little girls every single day. Does that move you in any regard? Our phone number to Crosstalk today, 800-733-9829. 800-733-9829 is our phone call to Crosstalk today. Taking your calls, your questions for our guest today, brief comments that you might have. Again, that's 800-733-9829. And then to know that $792.2 million in your funds, your tax dollars, my tax dollars, are going toward this organization. And I understand, Kelsey, that $792 million it's a major chunk of money. Isn't that their most major source of funding that comes into them?
Yes, that represents 39% of their total revenue. And what we would be targeting in this budget bill is their Medicaid funding specifically, and that ends up being the lion's share of what they get. It's around $529 million. So this wouldn't completely defund them from public money because they do get some state funding, but it would take away the vast majority of funds that they get.
Yeah, the vast majority of federal funds, correct?
Correct,
okay.
Yes.
Again, friends, our number to Crosstalk, 800-733-9829. We have Robert calling in from Grafton, Wisconsin. Robert, you're on the air.
Good afternoon, Jim. Good afternoon, ma'am. I can't remember your first name. I apologize.
It's Kelsey.
Horrible.
That's okay.
I just want to ask one question. First, I got a little confession. I'm not glorifying this, but when I was 17 years old, my girlfriend at that time, in 1973, was coerced into getting an abortion. And I've been living with that ever since then, but not in the way that I have been since I was born again, became a Christian, and really knew what life was all about. But I haven't heard one word out of President Trump's mouth, and I voted for him 3 times. I want to mention that, so I support him. But I haven't heard anything about this issue from him. And he professes to be a very strong family person. I know I've seen him interact with his grandchildren, so on and so forth. But have you heard anything from him about abortion and Planned Parenthood being funded by us?
Thank you.
I can address that. So in his first 100 days, he did in his first week in office, he did take some important steps on the life issue that didn't get much fanfare. One of the things he did was cement the Hyde Amendment. Now, the Hyde Amendment is supposed to prevent taxpayer dollars from funding abortion directly. And so Biden took that and threw it out the window when he was in office. But Trump brought that back. Another thing he did was reinstate the Global Protect Life rule. This is also known as the Mexico City policy, where it prohibits the U.S. family planning funds from going to any foreign NGO that performs abortions. And another thing that he did was to free some pro-life prisoners who had been locked up by the Biden Justice Department when they had simply been demonstrating in front of abortion centers and prosecuted under the FACE Act. And so there were a number of key things that he did, I would say, right when he got into office. But to your point, a lot more needs to be done. We've got this issue of mail order abortion drugs that he and the FDA need to address, and there's so much more. We're not even close to the finish line. This is the beginning of the fight, not the end.
Yeah, and we've only got, a little less than, 3 years plus a couple months now, to get
That's
this
right.
done.
That's right.
May I interject one thing? Parent supplication is the mandatory thing we need to be exercising as the body of Christ.
Indeed.
In this issue.
Indeed. Thank you, Robert.
Absolutely.
You're welcome.
Yes, and thank you, Robert. And friends, yes, indeed, be praying about this prayer and supplication, and also putting that prayer into action as well. And that is making a phone call to let your member of Congress know your position on this issue. You can reach out to them, 202-225-3121, and the House 202-224-3121, that on the Senate side. Joshua is calling from California. Joshua, you're on the air.
Hi.
Hi.
Good afternoon. I was wondering about the potential removal of the FACE Act, or what you think about the no-hide laws.
Okay, let's talk about the FACE Act here in particular. Is that's something that's supposed to cut both ways, isn't it?
It's supposed to. It's supposed to protect pro-life individuals as well, and pro-life our side. But of course it doesn't. And when you look at the number of prosecutions, it's really all pro-life people who were singing worship songs outside of abortion facilities. We're talking about grandmothers, mothers, a communist prison camp survivor who was thrown into jail for peacefully protesting. And so we do support getting rid of the FACE Act. I don't know what the possibility and likelihood of that is of happening, but we do see that as something important in the future.
But that is not a part of this budget act that they're voting on pretty imminently.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Thank you for the call here. And friends, again, the Rules Committee could be convening. Well, they're scheduled to convene at 1 a.m. Eastern time this evening. And once it passes through the Rules Committee, they just went through a real challenge in the Budget Committee, made it through it, and now the Rules Committee, and then goes before the full House for a vote. And you can reach out to your member of Congress to let them know your position. We have Holly calling next from Florida. Holly, you're on the air.
Hi, thank you for your program, and I just want to thank your guests for being online and letting us know what's going on as well. But I'm calling because of the fact that I feel like I've never spoken about it before, but the idea is a lot of young girls or young women were coerced or felt like they were in a pinch and they got an abortion because they were kind of cornered and felt like they had to. So I feel like the big thing is now they feel guilty and they don't want to say anything against anyone else doing it. But I think that as a Christian, that you take what happened, the sin that you've done in the past, and use it to help other people so they don't do the same thing. And that's, something I think that we need to really kind of promote and show people that they need to not be afraid to speak out against it now.
Yeah.
So that's all I wanted to say.
Great. Thank you, Holly. Any comment there, Kelsey?
Yeah, I would say absolutely. And some of our greatest pro-life champions are women who have had abortions or have worked at Planned Parenthood or who were abortionists themselves. I just think of Dr. Kathy Altman, and I think she lives there in Florida, and she did abortions for years. And then she met Jesus. She had a heart change and realized what she was doing. And now she explains to people, what an abortion is and how they're actually done, and helps us explain to people how they're done and how horrific it is, not just for the unborn child who loses their life, but also for the women who she saw come back in, and the trauma that those women experienced and the heartache. And so, yes, we need more women like that and more people like that who are willing to be vulnerable and willing to be used by God and to turn that over to Him to help us win this fight.
And friends, before we pick up our next call, Kelsey, you've got a website as well that informs women and men, everybody, on issues like this. Give us out that site if you would.
Yep, it's sbaprolife.org. We have information there. We have news there. If you want to see what happened after the House tomorrow, if the House voted, it'll be right on our website. We also have a a podcast called Exposed Abortion in America, where we detailed the horrors of Planned Parenthood.
Again, friends, that's SBA, that stands for Susan B. Anthony, SBAprolife.org, and they will be keeping you abreast of what transpires. Let's go next to Ann calling from Milwaukee. You're on the air. Hello, Ann.
Hello.
You're on the air. Please go ahead.
Hi, Jim. This is Ann. I want to encourage people also, besides making the phone calls, because we shouldn't be paying for abortions, but also encourage people to go to their local abortion clinic and stand outside the abortion clinic and talk to these women, plead with them, and offer them help and pray for them, and for the pastors to speak out and to lead their congregation out to the abortion clinic, because that's how I got started 40 years ago. My pastor said, I'm going down to Planned Parenthood, come with me. So I want to encourage people to do the same.
Yeah, thank you for raising that, Ann. And let me ask you, Kelsey, I saw a disturbing story on lifenews.com just yesterday that indicated a survey showing only 9% of people indicated their churches bring up abortion on a regular basis. 58% said the topic never or rarely comes up. What is the responsibility of the church?
Yeah, this is not a political issue. This is an issue that comes down to what the Bible says about it, and it's very clear. It's very black and white, and unfortunately, so many people have been misled. We had 50 years of Roe, and the abortion lobby has the stronghold, not just on people politically, but culturally and in our lives and even in our faith. And too many pastors have been afraid to talk about anything that could be tangentially political. And I understand the need to focus on saving people and getting more people to be a part of the kingdom someday. But we can't ignore this. We can't ignore the greatest civil rights challenge of our time and all of the thousands, millions of people who have died because of abortion. It is our duty as Christians to stand up and speak to them. And nothing breaks my heart more than pastors and Christians who not only miss the importance of this, but sometimes argue the other side because it's not a conversation we've had in our churches before.
Right. And it's not either or, it's both. I mean, we are both salt and we are light. There's a twofold responsibility. Barbara's calling from Grafton. You're on the air.
Hi. It appears to me that abortions have destroyed an entire workforce, which has been causing a labor shortage, and that in turn is causing a reduction of money available for the newly retired to receive Social Security payments because not as many people are paying into the system. Yeah. And I thank you very much for your invaluable service to provide the truth for so many of us.
Thank you, Barbara, for raising that.
Thank
it's
you.
A valid point, Kelsey, when we think, 67 million babies have been aborted since Roe v. Wade, and so, put on the seatbelt. We just had Brad Mattis on recently and talking about the propulsion toward euthanasia here in states and the medical aid in dying and so forth. That's where we're going. That's where we're heading as a nation right now.
Yeah, think of who is not among us and who never was among us because of an abortion, because abortion took their life. I mean, what would our world be like? What things would have been invented? Would we have a cure to cancer, to Alzheimer's disease? Had these people been allowed to be born? It's heartbreaking to think of the teachers and the pastors and the entrepreneurs, the elected officials who we never had, and the friends we never knew because their life was ended.
Every life is precious. Friends, we're up against a break. We'll take a quick break and come back to Brad and Jerry and Chuck and others calling in here this afternoon on Crosstalk. And don't forget the member of Congress you can reach through the switchboard at 202-225-3121. 202-225-3121. Go to house.gov. Go to senate.gov. You'll find it there, specific numbers. You can reach out to their local districts to let your view be heard on this matter. The House is coming together, could be convening within less than 24 hours as a full body to cast their vote. Will your voice be heard? We'll be back in a minute. You're listening to Crosstalk.
For the Worldview Report, I'm Brandon House. Our website's worldviewreport.com. Texas, Tuesday, May 20th, 2025. There are 4 faithful pastors, along with many civilian citizens, that are holding a rally at the Capitol. It's a Judeo-Christian rally. It's to counter the Islamist groups that are coming and taking over Texas. Texas has clearly been targeted, and the Islamic countries have billions of dollars to use the media, pad the pockets of politicians, and the budget shortfalls of counties and cities. Texas has clearly been targeted with compounds, Islamic compounds, mosque, schools. They're teaching, because we sent in an undercover former federal agent last week, they're teaching things like child marriage and waging war against the Christian and the Jews. If they can take down Texas, they can take down any state.
You're listening to Crosstalk on the VCY American Network. With us today is Kelsey Pritchard, Political Affairs Communications Director for SBA Pro-Life America. Their website, sbaprolife.org. Right back to the phone lines holding the longest. Brad in West Allis, Wisconsin. Brad, you're on the air.
Hey, Brother Jim. Earlier in the show, you alluded to the United States and said, how can we refer to ourselves as a civilized nation? Well, we can't. Not if we allow this to go on.
Yeah.
Look at even the Muslims. Take them. These savages. They'll kill other people like it's nothing, and they lie like they breathe. But they're not dumb enough to kill their own babies. And now for a while in this country, we've got a thing where if a woman goes in for an abortion and it's botched and the baby comes out alive, what do we do now? They either let it sit there and die, or they kill it, and that's the end of it.
Yeah.
And we've got these post-birth abortions. Guess what, people? Post-birth includes us.
Yeah, it does. Thank you, Brad, for raising that. Good points here, Kelsey.
Yeah, I mean, we have a number of these states that don't have born-alive protections like you're talking about, and Minnesota comes to mind with Governor Walz, who removed their born-alive protection, and then we learned later that there were a number of babies who were born and not given any care and probably no food. Who knows what happened to them, but they were born alive from their abortion and then they died. And when you remove laws like that, when you can't even agree to a simple law as don't kill abortion survivors, it's just a track that we're on, and it's hard to see us coming back from that. We need a lot of prayer. We need a lot of people to get in this fight.
We have Chuck calling from Albuquerque, New Mexico, and Chuck, you're on the air.
Thank you very much for this topic today, Jim. It's near and dear to so many of our hearts. I wanted to call attention to something. A caller a little bit ago asked what President Trump's perspective was on this. And I want to really make the point that Melania Trump has expressed her very strong views in support of abortion and also women's pro-choice. And in an interview that she did with Maria Bartiromo on Fox, she even said that Trump knew about this at the time that they were married. So that's something that's probably responsible for some of the reasons why he hasn't taken a more definitive position on this. I think there's something to be said for that.
Thank you.
The other thing I wanted to mention real quick is that here in New Mexico, we have a governor and an attorney general that completely ran on their primary platform of abortion, and to the point that the Satanic Temple of New Mexico was made an official abortion clinic here, and they actually call the abortion clinic the Samuel Alito's Mom's Satanic Abortion Clinic, if you can believe that. And the governor fully endorsed that.
Thank you, Chuck. Thank you for raising those issues. Any response, Kelsey?
Yeah, I would say since the Dobbs decision, we've seen this kind of troubling response from some Republicans, especially during elections, where they run from the issue of abortion, or they start looking more like a pro-choice person than a pro-life person, now that we can actually have laws that save lives. And I would say that those Republicans have been committing political malpractice. I don't think they understand where the base is. the conservative base is on this issue, and that many of the governors who enacted, actually all the governors I can think of who enacted trigger laws, were reelected by huge margins that very next election. And so we should be encouraged by the fact that Democrats lost so big last year when they went all in on abortion, all at any point in pregnancy, any trimester abortion, and they lost big time and their lives were revealed. And so I think Republicans need to lean in more this election and not take this ostrich approach of digging their heads in the sand thinking the issue is going to go away, but to be vocal proponents for life on this issue and to once again be pro-life.
Jerry's our next caller in Whitewater. You're on the air, Jerry.
Yes. What good does it do for Congress to pass any laws, bills to protect our people if they're killing the very people they protect?
Yeah.
And the other thing is, when you said earlier that women are going into these clinics and holding their nose, isn't that a dead giveaway? You need to get. Could you imagine going into your dentist office or your regular doctor's office and it smelled terrible? You wouldn't stay in there for 1 second. You'd leave there in a heartbeat.
Yeah. Thank you for raising that, Jerry. And I saw here too, Kelsey, that even there have outside sewer issues going on outside abortion clinics as well, with many wondering what is going down through there. We're going to just squeeze one last call in. Mark in Kentucky, you're on the air.
Hello, Jim and Miss Kelsey. This is Mark Sims, London, Kentucky. Jim, got to speak with you a few times before. My comment is about abortion, but to kind of correlate my thinking.
Tell you what, we're down to 30 seconds, Mark, so say it quick.
All right. I believe artificial intelligence, the internet, the disassociation between humanity and people has a lot to do with the acceptance of abortion.
Yeah. Great. Thank you.
We no longer interact with each other.
Thank you. Loss of many personal relationships. Thank you for raising that issue as well. Kelsey Pritchard, our guest here today, Political Affairs Communications Director for SBA Pro-Life America, their website, sbaprolife.org. The phone number to your member of Congress, 202-224-3121 and 202-225-3121. House.gov, Senate.gov. Kelsey, you've got the final 30 seconds. Go ahead.
Yeah, this is going to take all of us to get involved, to get this done. And we, as the pro-life movement, as Christians, by the grace of God, took down Roe. Then we enacted pro-life laws in half the states. And now the next step in this huge fight is to defund Planned Parenthood. So call your member of Congress, get engaged, let them know that this is the time that we finally stop funding abortion businesses.
Kelsey, thank you so much for being with us here today. And
thank you. God bless.
Stay on the line for just a moment, if you would, friends. Again, your member of Congress, they're going to be casting votes. Do they know what your position is? You can reach out to them, 202-224-3121. Thank you, friends, for listening to Crosstalk.
You've been listening to Crosstalk via satellite and the internet from VCY America. Views expressed may or may not be those of this station. For a CD of today's program, send a donation of $6 or more to VCY Tape Ministry, 3434 West Kilbourne Avenue, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, 53208, or download by RSS or podcast from crosstalkamerica.com. And join us again for Crosstalk.